Okay. Good evening. Well, I guess we'll wait for people to start coming on. Pinky, you said you turned off your volume. You
Yes,
sure?
indeed. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. I'm here doing my little administrative things.
So good
Um,
night, everyone. How are you guys doing tonight? I
I'm good.
can't. I can't
I'm
hear
good. Can you
you.
hear me?
I could hear you, but
Okay.
I,
Sasha,
I was on mute. I'm
girl,
doing
I want to call you Sheba. Oh my God, give me strength. I was
no
gonna say
Sasha girl, Sasha.
Pinky weary man. I was trying to get a house prepared for the holidays, and before I start working on others, so that's what we're doing. What you guys were doing?
Festivals coming up, so and I work with festival judges committee, so we're trying to get the shows. We have Prince and Princess on Sunday, right? And then we pretty much have a show every week after that. So
Mm.
if you're coming home, come home if you can
No,
afford
man.
it, because I've seen American Airlines prices, but
and
This
then
time,
They're
and
only
then
asking for two legs, an arm, and half of your kidney.
no, but and then the crazy thing is, I saw someone today. One of my friend's daughters post up today the how Spirit was canceling people's flights, upcoming flights. Yeah, people got emails today saying that they had canceled some of their flights. So I don't know what's going on.
I
well,
really, I procrastinated, and maybe it was a good thing because I did find a good price for, I don't call it Soul Plane. I did find a good ticket for Soul Plane, but I was like, I don't feel like it, and I just give up. Nope. So you won't be seeing Michelle. It was a
well,
plan, but
I'll tell you what. Because we are getting two cruise ships at a time, try a cruise. Virgin Cruises comes to the VI now. They
mhm.
dock in St. Croix, them and Celebrity, so they're here more often, and it probably would be a better trip. So come on through, just get on the
Wow,
boat.
I
wow,
telling you, it's something else, eh? It's
Yeah,
something else.
That's the
yeah.
paranoia kicking in.
I don't know what is going on. I'm not even like playing. I'm like, nah.
The flight,
Uh-uh.
I mean, it's expected to be up because of the fuel, and now everybody got to start pay back their loans for these free money that the government give. Um, and there's so many factors that plays into why these price tickets are outrageous. It's not just one factor.
Right.
right.
Because I was going to go home with my mom, and from within 24 hours, the ticket went from being $300 to $1,600.
Mm.
And then when I look back at it, they even have tickets as high as $6,000 to go to St. Croix.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
I looked at tickets to go to St. Martin from St. Croix, and it was $4,000 for a
Don't try
ticket.
Yeah,
to
so it's everybody dealing with
don't try
this.
to go to the Eastern Caribbean from the Virgin Islands at all. That's
And it's and
illegal
it,
at this
and it's and
point.
it's ridiculous to be like, I mean, really,
Yeah,
like
you can't, and you have to fly to the States to come back down. You know what I mean? It's really, really, really annoying.
definitely.
And
Um,
then we only
Good
have
night,
one flight
Randy.
now.
Good night,
Usually,
Marilyn.
usually during the season, we have two flights on American. We only have one, so you don't really have much of an option, and that is
Charlotte
another
Charlotte has a
factor.
direct flight every Saturday. It's a
Right?
direct flight that comes down.
Yeah.
This is the only time I miss working for the airlines once a month.
Mm.
But
Mm.
I did my good 14-year run.
Not mad at you at all.
Yeah, Debbie, we're not hearing you.
You're on mute. It's popping in and out apparently. No, we can't hear you now. I read lips well, but no, we can't hear you now.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, we can't
the
hear you
flights
at
are
all.
ridiculous. It requires planning, though, like everything else. I think if you do a last minute, it has to be something that is either it's an emergency
Yeah.
or you wake up in a mm, uh, emotional state and you really miss home and like you dying and like your anxiety kicking in and you have to go. But my
Yeah,
anxiety is
guy
working
paying
like
for the price of
crazy.
the ticket.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody credit card gonna take a hit. But I also look at the fact too that hospital rates are going up. They have all kind of
Good night, Neil.
they have
Well,
all
good,
kind of
good
cruisings
evening.
going on over the place. I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-mm.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
but
go watching.
it's the Eastern Caribbean on a whole. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I remember Saint Kitts has Carnival right before. Well, Saint Kitts has Carnival right before Saint Croix has Festival. Trying to get to Saint Kitts right now is like 2,000 and change as well. So it literally is the entire Caribbean area.
People
We
by
are
the
just
airport.
knocked out, pretty much. You know, they have flights going into BVI now, and I guess it's because they're spreading themselves thing that the prices are going up as well. That's another factor that's in there. But now you have access to more places. It's just if you can afford to go. And me who like to fly, Debbie, we still can't hear you, darling. Me who like to fly, I'm planning all of these. Yeah, okay. If you can go out and come back in, okay, but we are not hearing you
Still
at
not
all.
hearing you.
So
Yeah.
Neil, how you doing? Welcome, Neil. Welcome. Good to see you.
I'm good. I'm good.
So,
I just come off of my consult.
Ooh, was it good?
for your daughter?
Yeah, a bunch of 6 to 8 readers.
What kind of
It was
consult?
great. It was a lot better than I thought it would have been.
Nice.
What kind of consult?
Um, um, I guess orchestra.
Mm.
Got a
Nice.
got a consort orchestra and a symphonic or something like that. So
Oh
Symphonia.
wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
I used to enjoy that back in the days. My kids all did orchestra. They played the cello and the stand-up bass.
Oh nice. The best instruments
we
on the
got to play
planet.
the violin.
Hmm? Or the
We got to play the
violin?
violin.
Yeah. None of mine, yeah. They all played the cello and one the stand-up bass. So, well, anyway, time to start. Debbie, we could hear you or not?
No, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, love. We can't
Sign
hear
language.
you.
Sign language.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's a good thing that we read lips well. That don't use those ones.
Don't do that because then you use the wrong
You
thing and
know-
then we gonna go offend people. Then we like don't try nothing, you know.
I do not know what's wrong with your volume. We could hear
Yeah, I
you
don't know
before and you
either.
just disappeared.
It's your microphone or your microphone.
Yeah. So anyway, tonight we're talking about advice. Till Debbie figure it out over there, she'll jump in. I don't know what's going on. So we're talking about that. That's Debbie. We go hear her now.
No, that's my
Okay.
grandson having a moment.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about advice tonight. Any advice you received?
I haven't met the other two.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Neil. Sorry. Yes, we haven't had a meeting this week. Sorry. It's the holiday season. So we kind of like, So this is Sasha, better known as Karen, but we call her stage name is Sasha.
The government knows me as Karen, but my name is Sasha.
Are you
Karen.
from St. Croix, St. Thomas?
I'm from St. Croix.
St. Croix?
I'm a Crucian, yes.
Yes.
So-
What part of St. Croix you from, Sasha?
Politically correct, I'm from Williams-Salite, WB.
Okay.
But I'm from Williams-Salite, born and raised, all my life. Because I never lived in no place. Actually, I lived Sion Farm for a stint when I got older with my daughter. But
Okay.
I've always lived there.
Well, Neil is from Sion Farm, so
All the way from the time I was born.
Yeah, I only lived Sion Farm for a stint for like a minute when I thought I was grown and I wanted to move out.
Yeah, I live in Mumbai since I was born to my son. I don't know no other place. Well, when I get married, I live in Pepper Tree Terrace. But anyway, that's not here or there. And this is Shirley Gomes. Yes, Shirley
How you doing,
Gomes. Both of you, this
I'm
is
fine.
Michael Muller,
Hey. how
better
are
known
you?
as Neil. I know
Okay.
Neil from the time I was like, we ain't gonna age each other here. You could age yourself. I way younger than you anyway, but I know Neil for a long, long time. Because Neil uncle was married to my aunt, and
Okay.
so yeah, I know Neil longer than I know anybody. Debbie, Janos, everybody. That's how
Okay.
far back me and Neil go. Debbie, we can hear you now. Debbie?
Yeah, we can definitely hear her now. I can hear her putting in her headphones. So that's
Can you hear
definitely
me?
a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
You
so
figure
we can
it out.
start.
I have to go. I have to go on my phone.
That
Okay.
college education pay off, eh? I don't know.
Whatever.
I just have to
Stop
say
it, no
that.
man.
You got jokes tonight.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I don't
funny.
know what's going on. First it was my computer, now it was my iPad, so it is what it is. But now that everybody has introduced themselves, Michelle, did you introduce yourself too?
Pinky
Yes,
introduced me.
everybody
Yes, yes.
introduce. It's there.
Okay.
It's time to start.
Okay, so um, again, one of the things that I've realized in life is that we get a lot of advice, but how well do we apply the advice that we get? Um, if it's something that sits in our spirit. So, my question to each of you is what
Sorry. Let me interrupt. I happy birthday, right? Right?
happy
Yes,
I
happy
don't know
birthday.
this or her
birthday.
birthday this week. I see the video she posts, right?
Yeah.
That is nothing. I told you already. That's nothing new. I do my
But
crazy wild
but
stuff ever so often when I
but
do my
definitely
jiggy
Yeah,
jam.
she
happy
yeah.
birthday to you. You know, I know you're 24 still, but keep it up.
Well, no, not quite 24. I'll claim 36. That's
Okay.
it.
All
And
right.
that's only because the knee to bother me every so often. That's it.
Yeah, man.
But
Yeah, man.
so what is like good advice that you've received over your lifetime, that whether or not you've applied it? I just want to say something. I was reading something earlier today, and one of the, I guess I don't even know if necessarily it's an advice, but it was like something that Dr. Williams said, and now I see it all the time about 100 because all my life I've always heard 50-50, and that now resonates with
Hey,
me.
Tracy.
Yeah, good night, Nikki. Giving 100 and receiving 100, two wholes coming together. And that really has resonated with me, in how I show up in life. But go ahead, Shelly, let's start with you.
I got a lot more bad advice than I got good advice, unfortunately. And unfortunately, because I didn't realize it was bad advice, I tried to apply it, and it
Mm,
messed with my life for a number of years until I figured out that, tradition and sex produces children, not parents. And age does not necessarily make you wise, right? So I had to figure out one, what advice was and who it was coming from, and then whether or not it needed to be applicable. And so I spent a lot of time filtering through a lot of what the old adages were that came across that should have been advice, and I altered a lot of them. Um, one of them was what you were talking about. It's not 50-50, it's 100-100. The other one is you make your bed, you lay in it, but nobody said after that that it's your bed. If you don't want it, try it out, right? And so you make the adjustments based on how you go through life and the things that you do. And so that in itself started teaching me to pay more attention to what I considered advice, and looking at who's giving it and in the context that they're giving it, right? Because, I'm not going to take advice verbatim from somebody that's maybe in a similar situation, but their circumstances are different to mine. So I've learned to take out the bits and pieces that would make sense. And if, take the meat with a bone kind of story, and do that in terms of advice. But I think one of the best advice that I ever got, actually from a friend of mine in high school, Claudia Schrader.
mm,
Claudia was like, "You are really, really different." I think she wrote it in the yearbook. So just be yourself, right? At that point in time, I was already being myself, which is why I was really, really different. But it encouraged me to continue to be myself, and so learning what that actually meant took on a whole new meaning for me later on in life. When I met Miles Monroe and we had that conversation, that was one of the things he told me too, the literally be yourself. And I'm like, this be yourself thing means something. But I realized that being yourself doesn't necessarily happen if you have no clue who you are, right? And so I learned to, and so now my motto is be yourself. No one else is better qualified, because I kept trying to pattern myself on other people because that's what I was told to do. If you're going to be successful, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief kind of thing. Well, no, wait, hold on. I'm female, so it's a teacher, nurse kind of thing, right?
Right.
Not the doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. That wasn't for us because we were girls. Find a husband and make sure you're a good wife kind of story. I mean, and those things kind of just like it didn't make sense because I didn't like peopling, and so because I didn't like peopling, it was very difficult for me to be around people for a long time. And I still don't like peopling a lot. I mean, even though I'm a counselor, I love people, but being peopling is hard for me, because I pay attention to everything. One of the best advice that my grandmother gave me was listen to what people say, but listen more to what they do. And that one stuck with me. My grandmother died when I was 12, but that one stuck with me for my entire life, right? Listen to what they say, but listen more to what they do. Because, the action speaks louder than words is not a lie. That one is true. But then one of the other things that I learned as well from that advice is figure out why the actions were there, and then from another, mentor of mine who Fitzroy Bryan, he told me, and I remember these people because these are the ones that stuck, right? Yeah. Another thing that he told me is don't argue to win, argue to understand. Right. And he was an attorney and he was trying to get me to go to law school, and that did not work. But that was what he told me. He said, don't argue to win, argue to understand, because we don't ask questions. And because we've never learned to disagree without it being confrontational, that's the reason why he used the words, don't argue to win, argue to understand. And so I've learned to ask questions when I don't understand something.
Excellent. Excellent. Those are some good ones. How about you, Karen?
I'm looking for a paper and a pencil to write down the word people in. I just
Just add ing to people.
You have just educated me on that word, and I love it because in the last 3 years, I have discovered I don't like peopling, and it's okay. And it's
okay.
Okay if you don't like peopling. I'm not that I don't like people, and I thought it was because maybe my social skills. I was told I need to work on my social skills, which people have told me that a long time. I have a standoffish attitude. So if you see me, you're gonna think I'm a very mean person. And I do that because I don't want to be approachable. I don't want everybody to think I stay friend, because I'm not. I don't want to be everybody's friend. Having friends require you to be within a space where people don't know how to control their spirit. I'll put it like that. So what they do is they dump it on you, and then you end up carrying it, which I found out this whole empath thing, which I haven't really gotten into it yet. But they tend to dump their spirit on you directly or indirectly. So that's why I don't want to be everybody's friend, because they're going to think that, I could tell them my problems. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
It's the energy, they don't dump the energy.
The energy.
But they don't dump it, you don't absorb it. You have to learn to protect your energy.
And I realized that people tend to tell me they'll sit down and we'll have a conversation, and in the process of peopling, they tell me all their business, they start to tell me things, and I don't necessarily give good advice because people don't take it. When you talked about people giving advice from a very early age, I did what Shelby did. I had the art of discernment. Like when somebody tell me to do something, and not that I was a defiant child, which I kind of sort of was, man. I got the most licks. But when somebody tell me something, I investigate. I look at your life. Like if you're telling me about, I've gotten advice that, you can't be a successful single mother. I proved them wrong. You have to get married. You need a husband. You have to have a husband. No, I should have mastered the art of co-parenting. So my life would have not have been as challenging as it was. But what I realized is those challenges made me who I am. Like those challenges caused me to get the multiple degrees and create an income where I could take care of my kids, where I didn't have to beg nobody for nothing. So it kind of sort of indirectly pushed me to be the person that I am today. Right. So when I got advice from people, I look at who it's coming from. Like, some people give you relationship advice and they either getting battered or they beating up somebody. They and their husband sleeping in separate rooms. Are you giving me advice? What I've learned is I need to compromise. I'm not very compromisable. And that advice came
What
through.
what sign are you?
I'm a Capricorn. Get ready to take over.
I just tried to. I just.
You thought she was like you, Leo? I mean,
No. Listen,
A Leo? He's a Leo?
me got a problem with compromising, and so you check.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I do. I have a problem with compromise, especially for me. I think compromising has age appropriation associated to it, and I'll explain that. In my 20s, I'm very understanding. If we're in our 30s, it goes down to 75%. When we're in our 40s, 50%. Anything over 45, it's at an 80%. Because at this point in your life, it's either you know or you don't know. I am not going to, I'm not even explaining to you at this age, certain things apply and don't apply. Like I shouldn't. Unless you've been under a rock someplace, I ain't the person for you. So, but I've learned there's certain things that I am willing to compromise based on who I'm compromising for in the situation. Again, the art of discernment. Like when people give you advice, you have to really look at where is this advice coming from? Am I taking medical advice from a lawyer? Am I taking law advice from the maintenance man? And he probably might know what he's talking about, because he probably, is a career criminal. But when we start taking it, that's the best people to give advice. But when we start taking advice from people, we have to learn to look at where the advice is coming from. Yeah. Some people tell you advice because they believe, and advice is it's like a salad. It comes with experience, education, culture. It comes with, so many factors that when people tell you, you have to really look at where it's coming from. If it's coming from a good place, because some people may try to steer you away from that handsome man because they want him. Leave you alone. He's a player, but he just cute. He probably ain't a player. He probably really and truly a good person. But like I said, when it comes to taking advice, I always, and I tell my kids that too, don't just take my word for it. Do your research.
Right.
And sometimes it may not work for me, but it may work for you. It might feel good and you might like it. Like you may like I like to drink soda, a little kind of soda every day because I like that buzz. I like that high. It ain't good for me, but I like how it feels. So for me, it's okay. For you, it may not be okay. So when you give and you take advice, I think that the whole concept of it is look at where it's coming from. A lot of people nowadays are not genuine. And you have to be able to feed that person out. Like sometimes when they're giving it to you and they have the veins popping out their head, you're like, what?
But I mean, and that's true. But I mean, even advice that we've gotten growing up, like, how they say, do what I say, not what I do.
Mm-hmm. Do as I say, not as I do. But, in management, in the workplace, in order to get your people to do stuff, it's not by managing them, it's by leading them. Leadership. Like when you look at when the success factor of when people, I watched this TED talk one time where this lady operates her management team as a football team, like how coaches, like they coach people, because the success factor of you coaching somebody into doing something is far greater than you telling somebody what to do or even leading them. Because coaches educate you, they tell you how to do it, they show you how to do it, and they navigate you how to do it. So the coaching mechanism in getting people to do stuff is far more greater than you just telling them, your parents will say, don't question me.
Mm-hmm.
I's the mother. Yeah, but I when I grew up, I know a lot of things my mother told me.
Okay, well,
Sex
Neil,
produces
we gotta
children,
get
not parents.
Yeah. Neil, what's your take on it? What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Well, when people come to me and talk to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen because I could always get something out of it, right? Negative, even if it's negative, right? I could get something out of it. So I always keep a open mind, right? And what worked for somebody may not work for me, but I would still listen, because here again, I could get something out of it. Like most of my advice come from my mom, and from telling me, stuff that I didn't realize, and it wasn't relatable because I wasn't an adult until I had children. A lot of the stuff she told me, now I could understand, right? Now I could relate to it. So, but every relationship I've been in, I guess I get advice. Like I had experiences, conversations, and I'll say this: I did this one lady, right? She was talking to her friend, and she mentioned like stuff about how I train a bull, and I didn't understand it. I thought it was like that's crazy, you know. But
No, that's a good thing.
but she was
Yeah,
saying that
Shelly.
at least
It is.
I don't stick.
He gonna explain it though.
I don't
Mhm.
do. I won't come into something and have the same type of um, you know actions as I would before. But my mom every day I walk this out. Something my mother tell me. Um, I always live in that. Um, sh- I don't talk to so many friends and people are giving me advice. I don't look at it as a negative thing, right? Because I listen in to learn something, regardless of how they talk and regardless of what the conversation may be, right? And so as far as advice, any my daughter tell me today, she said every time you talk to somebody, you smiling. Like every time you there, you smile. I said, well, I like people. I'm a lover of people,
So you
right?
like people in.
I don't engage people in conversation, right? Because I don't know everything in this world, and to me, the best communicators are the most successful people. That's how I see it, right? If you could communicate and navigate this crazy world we live in, right? Then, and so I talk to people, strangers, and they may say something. I'd be like, wow. So my best friend had got sick, right? And I remember going to visit him, and he said, "You hungry?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'll make you a sandwich." He been there making sure no mayo ain't get on the side of the bread. I said, "Man, like it's a sandwich. You're gonna eat." He said, "You see this here?" He said, I'm making this sandwich with love." He said, "And that's how I roll." And I was like, "Wow," you know what I mean? I said, "Well, you know what? I could apply that to my life, every part of my life." And I start doing that, right? But I'm the kind of person that when somebody tell me something, I don't try to apply it because I realized at one point people were telling me stuff and we talking and like giving advice, they give me advice, but I never applying it because to me it didn't apply to my life. But any type of advice I have or I get,
You
um,
try.
I don't try to apply it. If it makes sense to me,
Right.
right? But I don't just discard people give me advice because listen, they might have been in that space and they don't want me to get in that space either, right? So somebody being growing up with a lot of bad advice could give me advice and what bad advice is, right?
Right.
If I never been around a bunch of people that that wasn't giving bad advice, you could show me, or give me some reference as to how to navigate that kind of space.
Right.
So, but listen, I got a lot of good advice from my mom.
So
Um,
what advice? What is one thing that she told you that you did actually apply to your life?
Everything. That's what I'm saying. Um, I
But
remember.
there's
I
not
remember.
one that sticks out the most.
Um, she tell me I was like 12 and we were having a conversation, and she tell me, "Listen, when you get old, or when you get old enough, and you get married and you got a family, she said your family come first. She said, don't worry about me. I live a good life, right? She said that's what comes first." And I always never forget that. I was like 12, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I listened, and then I was like, I see where she's coming from, right? That, my mom she used to work a lot, and even eventually she get divorced. My parents got divorced, And she turned to me and she said, make sure when you get a job that you don't dedicate so much time to your job that it affects your life, right? And your family and stuff like that there. And a lot of we don't, to me, a lot of we don't get so deep into our job. And I got this philosophy. You're gonna spend most of the time, either at home or at your job. One of them got to be good because if your job ain't good, it's hard for you to get up every day to go to your job. But you're wanting to come home. If home ain't good, you're ready to run out of the house, but you never want to come back home because so either and that's advice I give to my friends. And I'll be like, I'll try to make sure at least one of them good because if two of them ain't good, you don't want to go to work, you don't want to come home.
Be a problem.
But
Someone just said work to live, not live to work.
Yeah, but Debbie, it's a lot of stuff my mother have told me, right? And things are happening, and I'll be like, oh yeah, mommy telling me this. She said, like she always tell me if it means, she said, if it means you're gonna either be dead or in jail because of a situation, she said walk away and chalk it up in the book of losses. She's like, I'd rather you be here than to go through a kind of craziness. She said, just walk away.
That's
I'm here
good.
today. So.
Praise the Lord. How about you, Trina?
I was like Shirley and Sasha, I get a lot of bad advice. Like Neil, I always listen because you never know where you could walk away from. And maybe it might be the advice that they're giving you, but there is some nugget in there that you could use or you could learn from. Something in there. And you may walk away with the fact that, nah, don't listen to them then no more. That might just be the advice. You're like, no, they don't give good advice. But and that'll help you in the future. I get a lot of advice in my life from books and from the Bible. So anytime I read, I used to always highlight and take notes of things that I could use later on in life. So one of the best advice I've gotten was from a book called Love is a Decision. That was the only book I received for my wedding gift. And it was from my Aunt Betsy and my Uncle Marvin. And my Aunt Betsy and Uncle Marvin, being married, they always gave me good marital advice because my auntie always said to me, one time my auntie said, Pinky, I wanted to kill your uncle because she was from Alabama. She said, I want to kill your uncle. And I never thought that in a marriage you would want to kill the person you love because I was just married for a year. Come to find out you don't want to kill them a lot of times, but she said to me, but you put God first, you pray, and family is the most important thing. So she gave me the book, she and uncle gave me the book, Love is a Decision. And then that's the advice they give me. And that helped me through marriage. In the beginning of the marriage, I used to be like, I was one of them wife, like, love is a decision. Vince, love is a decision, But now in this mellow part of life, you learn that love really, truly is a decision. How you show up for people in your life, unconditional love, it's a decision to keep going, So that was one of the best advice I ever received in life. And then from my aunt who said to me, you have to keep going, put God first. Then one of my favorite quotes, and I can't remember who it's from, is become the change you want to see in the world. And I get a quote years ago. I don't remember how much and where I get it from. And that changed my life, And we hear now bits and pieces of it. Like if you want to be in a relationship and you want the person to be this, that, you should be this, that, right? And so to me, that's what that quote is saying. In life, we want love. In life, we want connection with people. I mean, you might not like people but you still want some form of connection with people, with a significant other, with whomever. But the thing, we want honesty in life. Wherever it is we want in our life, we have to give that. And that was a valuable lesson I had to learn, and a valuable lesson I had to teach my kids. So when we move from that place, that vibration of giving to the world what we want, we don't always receive it. That's why that relationship, that's why that advice was so vital and was so important to me, because we were taught like, well, I give you the 100. I think that's gonna change soon, because Karita was talking about Obama last week, and Michelle. And Michelle was saying sometimes she had to give she had to give 90% and was only getting 10%. And that's not like the exact numbers, but that's just at the top of my head. And that's why I had to learn. So a lot of times, like a statement that we always say is, in order to receive respect, in order to get respect, you have to give respect, or something like that. I can't remember how we go. And I don't think that's true. I think we have to show up respectful in the world. If people ain't respectful to us, we just exit the best way we can, most gracefully we can. And, so to me, them is the most important advice that I receive, because if you show up in the world thinking, I have to wait till somebody give me something in order to give it, I think we're going to get in trouble. So those were some very important advices I got. And the list goes on. Again, I get them from books, or I get them from the Bible. I see a quote. Debbie had given me a book years ago. We were in our 20s. It was a little calendar that had daily verses. And I used to recite them verses every single day, and I used to make sure that I read and study those verses in the Bible, because they were nuggets. They were teaching me how to live in this world. And it was in a very difficult time, because I was just recently married. And when you just get married, and that coming together is hell. For some people it was great, but for me it wasn't. And so I needed those advice. I couldn't get advice from the people around me, because a lot of them wasn't married, and a lot of them didn't believe in the same principles that I believed in. And so that's another thing. Like, you gain advice from certain people. Do they believe the same principles you believe in? As some of us don't have the same principles, and for me, I've learned to respect other people's position. Okay, that's how they see it, and I respect that. I don't see it that way, because that's not the principles in which I choose to live by. So I give Tria the best advice that I received in life. I got another one, but I can't remember. And the last one is the advice I gave to myself, because I had to give myself advice. And my advice, and I mentioned this last week, one of it was, I give myself a lot of advice, but one was, Pinky, practice what you preach. And that was a very good advice. And ever since I gave myself that advice, I've been following it. So, yeah, so that's it.
I remember when I first moved up here, I used to go to marriage ministry for my church at the time. And one of the things they talked about in there was about, and this is in regards to relationships, and I had never heard it before, that you in let's say in a marriage, or even a long-term relationship, you have to constantly, you should always continue to date that person, right? And like, I never had heard that before. And they were saying how vital that is, because in order for you to nurture that relationship, you have to do what you did to get into the relationship, right? And it's weird, because in my marriage, I kind of did that. Like, we did go out, but I don't know if it was an escape from children, but it wasn't ever anything like necessarily articulated. But I always say that's an important thing that I don't think anybody ever said to me before, and I'm finding this out in my 40s, right? After being married for 20 odd years, that how important that is to make that a priority in a relationship, to continue to date the person that you're in a relationship with. And I think that's really important. And so that's something I always like think about now. and then also about putting the mask on yourself first before you put it on anyone else. And being a mother of 4 and raising 5 kids, I had a stepdaughter. You know, you're living such a selfless life, doing for everybody else and not taking care of you. Um, and so I remember when I started hearing that term, I realized like, wow, like I never thought about me, you know, or taking care of me first so I could be the best person for everybody else. And so like for my godchildren and my friends' children who have kids, I always tell them, make sure you take care of you because you cannot pour into others if you're not pouring into yourself, right? Um, and to actually really apply it. And it's so funny because I think initially people are skeptical or scared to do these things when they hear it, but when you do it, it's so like liberating to
I
actually
don't
put
know
it
if we're
into
so
practice.
scared or the fact that we're taught when we take care of ourselves, we're considered selfish.
True.
But you
That's a
can't be
bad advice
selfish.
that we get. A
Uh-huh.
lot of times we're taught that, like, when you take care of self or you put self first, you're being selfish. As women, we are actually taught that.
True.
Bad advice. Go ahead, Debbie.
Very true. No, that's true. Um, but again, it's the application. I think is the hardest thing for a lot of people.
Mhm.
You know this information, but do you actually put it into practice and continue to
Mhm.
put it into practice, especially if it's working for you? Um, and I just wanted to leave that with people because I just feel like with all this social media, with all the books, with all the audio books and everything else out here, people are bombarding us with information all the time. But how much of that information are we actually putting into practice? Um, even, you know, and this is not just like, again, even relationships. This is like in your finances. This is in just, you know, in your career. Just anything. Do you put it into practice? You know, 21 days builds a habit, kind of thing. So um, I even like learned something yesterday or the day before. I was listening to something and it was talking about um, compatibility, chemistry, and connection. Um, that I had never heard about before. You know, that a lot of times we live a life where we think someone is compatible with us, which is something that you can lose because people can look good on paper, but
Mhm.
not necessarily be compatible once you get to be around them. Chemistry is something that it could be initial, but after time it's gone, right? But it's that connection, that soul connection that you have with someone or something that we have to really start to be serious about. Again, how we live our life and the decisions that we make. Um, and so, you know, I don't really try to necessarily give my kids like a whole lot of advice unless they ask for it, because, like you said, there's a whole lot of advice we got growing up that really wasn't necessarily good advice. And of course, it was coming from a place of love, but it really wasn't something we should have applied to our lives, right? Um, but if they ask, I will give it. But I just think it's like, again, being intentional about information that we receive. And if it's really something that's going to help us, to build us, to make us better people, show up in this world better, we really need to start to apply it just so we can be better people and a better community, period. Somebody said we all grow and change. The question is, where did
Go
it just
together.
go? We're all going to change. The question is, can we stay grounded in self-love? Old people say, come see me and come live with me is two
Two
different
different
things.
stories. That's
Mhm.
true.
Can I ask a
That is
question?
true.
Can I ask a
Sure.
question?
Hmm.
Um, I hear this term, like what people from back in the day advice that they give, and you know, it wasn't necessarily good advice, right? So
Some, not all, some.
yeah, well, but in every decade
Right.
or millennium, right? Like we evolving.
Right.
We know
That
way
too.
more now in just
Right.
the last 20 years, right, than probably, the people in back like in the last 200 years, right? Like that's how fast we evolving. So I think
What?
ultimately for me, right, I gonna listen
Right.
and I
Mhm.
gonna try to decipher it and see how I can apply it to my life in which part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because even good advice I've gotten don't necessarily apply to my
To you.
situation or my life at that time. But
Right.
I keep it with me, and then a year, 2 years, 10 years down the road, maybe the advice now is applicable at that time because we changing every day. You're changing, right? You ain't gonna go through the same thing every day, the same experience. Hopefully,
Sure.
you know for the rest of your life, and and they always say, they end one chapter and start a new chapter. So if you've been in a crazy situation and you finally get out of that, right? Advice that somebody was giving you back then may not apply because you've been in a chaotic situation. Now you're in a much sane situation. It can apply to you then, right? So
That's true.
knowledge is power. I don't ask a lot of
Understanding is
questions.
key.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
make sure I learn at least one new thing every day and at least try to make one person smile every day. If I can't learn something, or I can't make my own self smile, something wrong.
True.
So,
True.
so I
And you're right. That's why I said 100 is probably going to change because we know today nobody ain't coming 100. Like we have to admit that. We are
Mm,
coming with so many different fragments of ourselves, right? So which one of us is at our we're perfect? We're to say 100 saying we're perfect and nobody ain't perfect, right? So
I don't think so. I
no,
think
not
it's the way you. I think it's the way you look at the term. Because for me, 100 is necessary because I'm bringing my whole self, flaws and
well,
all.
okay, well
You know what I
again,
mean? That's my
yeah,
whole
whole
self.
self
but
is different.
I don't think
Right.
anybody can show up 100% of the time. You can't,
Right, but
right?
you have to know that. And for me, that's where the 100 comes.
Well,
I know that people aren't going to be perfect. I know that I'm not perfect, but I don't want you to present something to me that's not what it is because then what I'm trying to build with isn't real. And I have a really big problem with people being in imaginary relationships. And that is the reason why we have a lot of problems because we're in imaginary relationships. We get involved with the potential of the person and not the reality of the person.
So
With who we think they
when
could
you
be,
say
not who they
Shirley,
are.
Shirley, when you say 100, and Neil saying 100, and me saying it, we're saying it different things. Because what you saying is bring everything, your flaws and everything.
Right, because
That's
that's you.
100, right?
Right, that's you.
Right. And my perception of the 100 was perfection, which is not. And Neil
Right.
is saying the same thing because it's like you said, bring your whole self, your problems and all.
yeah,
That's me bringing 100%, my entirety, my
but
brokenness and my good side. So
right, but the reality is right. You go crazy trying to show up and trying to be 100% all the time, right? Sometimes you get weary, right? Sometimes you get tired. You can't show up 100%, right? But the person that you're with, if that person if that person knows you and that
Mhm.
person could satisfy, like, okay, you show up 50% or 40%, I could put in at 60 and cover you, right? In a relationship, you gotta cover the person because ain't every day you're gonna show up 100%, right?
I have a problem with the whole percentage and the whole number. It is just like,
so what's your take on it, Karen?
I think you just need to show up as your authentic self. Show up as who you are.
That's
I
100%
think
me.
people get more carried away when you start putting numbers and percentage to it. Because
Mm,
one day I might be at 40 and you're gonna be my 60. But it
mhm.
doesn't matter because like you said, nobody is 100% because 100% is attached to perfection, the ultimate, right?
Mhm.
I just think people need to stop showing up as who they are. And if you accept me for who I am, we can move forward as who we are. But when you
Right.
have this pretentious that I gonna show up and I gonna stop pitching numbers, and I think the strain of just being 100%, then you start to become pretentious. But just show up as who you are. Show up
Mhm.
as
CC,
a
CC
person
said the same thing. He said
Right.
authenticity is 100.
is
That's what he said.
Exactly.
100%.
And that's what Shirley is
flaws
saying.
and all.
Yeah,
Exactly.
flaws and all. But
Mhm.
Right.
like the context of what you said, they're gonna bypass
number.
it, and all they're gonna see is the numbers.
Right.
Right.
Like for me, like when this whole conversation that they've been writing on with what you bring to the table, and people start talking about there's the table, like you just lose the whole concept of what the contents of the conversation is about. The 50 and the 60. Basically, what they're saying is that you're not gonna I don't get up every day happy. Like I don't get up every day skipping around. People used to always tell me, smile. Like if I walk around here smiling, you're gonna put me in a crazy house. Like really?
Yeah, and you should if I'm smiling for everything, because there's a season for everything.
I don't want to pretend to be who I'm not, but I want you to accept me of how I show up. You understand? And just the knowledge that person is accepting you for who you are opens door for you to even learn a different way of showing up. Maybe instead of waking up in the morning and start thinking about all that you have to do, wake up in the morning with a sense of gratitude. Because when you when you show up as who you are and someone accepts you for who you are, you open doors for growth. And you don't you don't put up that defensive wall. Like people like me, my personality, I gonna start to get defensive when you start to ask me about numbers and how much I bring. I'm gonna tell you, me got nothing. I bring zero to the table.
Never gonna behave, yeah.
I have to say, like, if someone asks me, like, what you bring to the table, I gonna say nothing. I come in with my 2 long hand. Me come in with nothing. I don't have
Nothing in your legs.
good credit.
No legs, nothing.
Neil said no legs.
Nothing. Me got nothing. So take me as I am. So if you accept me with nothing, I okay with that. But if you want to start putting stipulation and demands on me, I ain't the person for you. And I let you know up front. Like
to me, that's too much rules, It's like you're going on a date, I got a thing with the 50-50, and I got a thing with the 50-50 because we talking numbers, right? It's like
I might want to pay for it because I gain points on my credit card and you could give me back the money later. I mean, why? People are just make things so difficult.
But Trisha said math was not my strong suit, so I don't like percentages. I like authenticity.
Yeah, just come as you are. Like
exactly.
But that's what we need to specify. See, because a lot of times, again, what Neil perception and Shirley and mine's perception were all different. So we hear these things and we walk away going with these advices, but we don't even understand what the principle behind what was said, like
where is it coming from? Because you guys,
that's again, we're questioning and communicating, and because again, I'm a numbers person, so it doesn't bother me.
Oh yeah, what is your degree in again? What is the degree
accounting,
in again?
which I hate. But anyway,
mine is accounting too, but
Pinky's is accounting also.
I'm not going through that then.
But again, I think we have to take away from it.
I don't know how that really.
Mine is project management. So I look at the strategy, I look at the key players, I look at how we gonna get to where we going to, regardless of what the number is at the end. That's not even relevant.
Right. I think we have to ask the question too when somebody is giving you the advice. What do you mean by what you're saying, so that then you can apply it if it is applicable to you? Because again, we don't listen, but sometimes we don't even ask the question. Yeah, we don't ask the question as to
reading comprehension are two different things, right?
Exactly.
So everybody's level of comprehension and being able to see the inside of what some inference and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like you got to be willing to like listen and then not even say anything, take it back with you, and then let's think about it, maybe a week or two or whatnot. You gotta listen. You gotta listen. Is it the one thing that I learned within the last 20 years to do is just listen and acceptance, right? Because we're talking about showing up as your authentic self, right? You got plenty of people that show up as the authentic self and
based on somebody else,
get denied, right? They get denied because me want that kind of person, right? So when you say authentic and people trying to come in as a different person, because when they show up authentic, they get rejected. So this is survival of the fittest, right? So you're gonna try to. I'm just saying.
And if you get
Okay,
rejected,
so
that's
but
okay.
but
That's,
right, and so the thing is, I agree with you.
and
I
I,
agree with you, Sasha, Karen, whoever you are tonight. Right? I mean, I
whoever you want me to be tonight.
this and this is the thing. But for me, right, Neil, this is the thing, right? And this is the reason why. I mean, like, this is the first time I'm meeting you, so you ain't know I weird. So, but I'm weird. Welcome to Shelly. But you know,
I
the
think
thing
I think
about
a
it
lot of
is
weird people, right?
wonderful.
I got a degree in science, so
Good. See, there you go. But the thing about it is, right, for me, a lot of the things that the adages and all the rest of it, and this is the reason why I say I got a lot of bad advice, because I got a lot of half advice, right? And half advice destroys you because you don't, one, you don't know where it's coming from, and two, you don't understand the principle behind the thing, right? And so therefore, it's not that you're not going to take it and learn from it, because you have to take the meat and throw away the bones. But one of the things that irritates me, which is why I don't do peopling a lot, is the fact that people base everything on somebody else's opinion, right?
for their
Everything,
experience,
And you know what they say about opinions? Everybody have one like a.
right? But you see, the thing about it, and the thing about it is, for me, and I've said this before, so Debbie and Pinky, I'm sure, have heard me say it before. People's opinions are not for validation of or confirmation of who you are. It's
Right.
information. That's all it is. So you take the information, and the 13 inches from your brain to your heart is where the application happens. If it can't go there, then you have knowledge without understanding. Sometimes knowledge without understanding becomes toxic, right? So you have a lot of wrong information. You know a lot of stuff. You can't apply the stuff. And then you're thinking about being in the potential of the stuff, and you become an imaginary person. And that's where my problem comes in. That's why people in becomes difficult for me. You know what I mean? That is really why people in becomes difficult. For me.
The advice that you got when you was 2021, right? If you got that advice today, right? Would you do the same thing you had done back then? Because we evolve, right? The advice, you may not be able to relate to the advice, because ultimately, if you're gonna grasp, you know, like grasp some kind of concept, it got to be relatable. I learned
exactly.
like my children them, and when I was growing up, my mother tell me a lot of stuff, and I was like, telling me that far, you know what I mean? When I had my children, I was like, oh, the light went off. Now I see where she's coming from. Now that advice could be applicable to my life. No, but not at 19 and 20, but
exactly. But that's because it was knowledge at that point. It was knowledge at that point. All it was information, knowledge. There was no wisdom attached to it.
Right, but knowledge is knowledge, right? Knowledge is
knowledge. Knowledge is information that you have. When you turn that knowledge into understanding, it's when it becomes something else, right? And I've learned that, but that's just me. And like I said, I'm weird. So
no, you're weird. What you're saying is,
I just think that a lot of the stuff we used to, like our parents, even as a parent, you trying to, you have to keep your children from getting into a lot of crazy stuff, right? And you're going to bombard them with a bunch of this stuff, advice, and they can't relate to it.
Right.
Now, when they get older, then
they get the understanding.
Oh, now I could understand. Now I could relate to it. Now I could apply it. Now it makes sense to me.
But it's like being in school, right? When we're in school, we get bombarded with a lot of information, right? But then when we have to apply it on the job, we have to relearn things because it's a lot of information coming at you all at once. Okay. But now you have to apply it. So now you actually have to shift your thinking in order to apply it. And that's the thing, like, you know, when you're in your 20s or you're in your 30s, some things, like Neil's saying, we just can't relate to it because we just don't have the experience. We don't have the life experience. You know, I'm going to use the Bible for examples. Sometimes you read the Bible when you, this is factual. You read the Bible when you're 20 and you read that same verse when you're 50. You come in away with two different understandings. Why? Because of life. Life, it gives you that experience where you're looking at that like, what? This is what it means. But it did mean something at that time too, you know. It just don't mean the same thing. But that's life. So somebody said we don't, somebody said we stop learning. I don't think we should ever stop learning.
No,
I
I
think
don't
if we
think so
live to
either.
be 1,000, we
We
must
should learn
be
something
learning
every day.
something all the time, because we actually, what the hell do we know? We don't know nothing. If we really sit down and look at life and we look at the vastness of this, what do we know? All the information we have, we really don't have nothing in comparison to all the information that's out there, right? So we should be open always, like Neil saying. But now what Shelly's saying is why I like, because a lot of times Nikki mentioned, we don't, I don't know if it was Nikki, but somebody mentioned some people are not comfortable with their authentic self. Then that's what you need to do on yourself. That's the work you need to do on self. And that's where self-love comes in. And it's not from a place of judgment. It's a place of awareness. Okay, you don't like your authentic self. And I learned this. Like when I started talking to guys and stuff like that, I didn't like to say certain things because I was like, oh, they might not accept me. Not today. Today I'm going to tell you plain out, this is Pinky. This is how she looked. This is how it is. Me now is in the mood because I'm more comfortable with myself. But 3 years ago, no, me saying certain things, I don't want you to see me a certain way because I wasn't comfortable with self. But again, we grow, we learn, we mature, we evolve, and we become better versions of ourselves if we open to it.
We hope people do that.
That's why I say if we open to it, because some of us are stuck because we're not, number one, we're not aware or we're not willing to accept the fact that we have to do work because we thinking to ourselves, well, we perfect, you know, or we don't want to be judged by others, or we don't want to be condemned by others, or whatever the situation is. So then we hide. And society has taught us to hide who we really are. So we could show up, like Shelly said, faking the wall, smiling. How you doing today? If you say I ain't doing good, you're going to get ridiculed. Well, guess what? Every day ain't good. Every day don't rain out. Every day ain't raining and every day ain't sunshine. You know, so you have to learn that and you have to accept that. But Neil, you were saying something?
I forget what I was saying. Go ahead.
I think
Well,
everyone has heard this: faith without work is dead. And the same thing comes with knowledge, like Shelly was explaining. You could have the knowledge, but for me, application is the key. Like sometimes when people give you advice, how did it work for you? Like, and that's just my discernment of it. But I think Des was saying that, you know, sometimes you can tell somebody something. Tell a child, don't touch the stove because the stove is hot.
Right.
And the inquisitiveness of them, they're going to want to touch the stove. And they ain't going to really realize how hot the stove. You tell them how hot the stove. You just tell them the stove hot. It could be hot where it's too hot for you, but it's bearable for me. And in life, sometimes you could give advice as much as you want. Unless it's you apply it and it worked for you, then you can give the experience. It comes off differently than somebody just telling you, well, a man down the road tell me, don't touch the stove. So you know if the stove hot, warm, lukewarm, you know, heated, there's different levels. But sometimes in life, they say sometimes like I give my kids advice. I used to get in my feelings when they didn't take it. But if I give you advice and you don't take it, life can teach you. Because like Shelly, I'm the typical parent that has given advice. I don't come with spreadsheet, PowerPoint presentation, handouts, and I have step-by-step guide. And people would laugh at me, but when I tell my kids to go clean the bathroom, I don't just tell them go clean the bathroom. They have a printout. When they were small, I used to have a picture of a bucket, a washcloth, the spray bottle and stuff. And honestly, I did.
You my kind of people.
I put it
inside
of a thing
I like
and I take it
details.
to the back of my door because I don't want no misunderstanding when my children come and do a half ASS job and tell me, but I clean the bathroom. But I didn't tell them how to clean the bathroom. That's where leadership comes in. You know, just telling them to do it. You didn't provide them with the resources. You didn't provide them with the tools.
Information.
And you didn't provide them with the know-how. So when I'm done with you, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say clean the bathroom, because not only did I give you a demonstration on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. and you were supposed to take notes, I gave you a handout that you'd put in your bedroom, and you have a handout taped to the back of the door, and I put a picture next to it so you know exactly because as a person, I'm coming back and tell you you do a good job. But what did I teach you?
Yeah.
So sometimes when we
Mhm.
give advice, it comes with application. It comes with, did you do it? Did you execute it? Did you, did you actually apply what you're telling me? Because some people that give advice and they've never been to Timbuktu. Whoever hear about Timbuktu? Where is Timbuktu?
Outside of China.
Africa, it actually got
Right,
Timbuktu
but
in Africa.
people will tell you about Timbuktu and they ain't even know where it's located. Like,
Listen,
you know what I mean? And I say that because people will give you advice, and it's either
based
they
on
hear
somebody
it
else's
someplace,
information.
and
Exactly.
but having the knowledge and applying the knowledge is two totally different things.
So
Exactly.
you know,
I also think too, right, that we have to be very careful because I like you, Karen. I don't give advice to my kids. If they ask, I will. But and sometimes they do, or sometimes I don't. But I've been learning because my kids are adults now.
my advice to my kids is, yeah, you alone.
Yeah,
I don't give advice.
we because somebody said it. I can't remember. I'm real tired, so my brain ain't really here
You
tonight.
know what?
But
Listen, so you say you're alone.
yeah, but the thing is, we have to, as parents, I'm learning because my children are adult. We have to let them have their own experiences and learn from it. It's like, oh, I think Sasha was saying with the hot stove, right? And the hot stove is kind of, because that's a danger thing, right? But in the same principle, children need to learn and have their own experiences. So I am a particular way, and my daughter is a particular way. And my children is the one who actually taught me this lesson, because I don't like when my kitchen look a certain way, but then I want them to learn how to cook. And so then my daughter would ask me to please leave the kitchen so she could do what she have to do, because I was too controlling in the kitchen, which I am. I could be Dave Ramsey, not Dave Ramsey, the other dude, Hell's Kitchen in my kitchen. I'd go like crazy in the kitchen. Watch this, do this, move them. And so then I had to learn, but not only with my kids, but with Vincent, because when Vincent was doing things, Vincent, you gotta do it. But Vincent had a mouth, and he gonna tell you where to go and sit down and leave you alone. Whereas the children don't have a voice because they were children, but when they reached a certain age, they were like, no, mom. And then I learned they don't do it different from me, but the food that tastes good the same, and it don't have to taste like mine, it could taste like hers, and it's just fine. And I don't like how the kitchen look, and she gonna clean the kitchen, I still ain't gonna like how it look, but then I could go in and fix it the way I want. But I have to allow them to do it their way. So they could be their
Remember what I tell you, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Yeah, I used to believe that. To me, that's bad advice.
If you want,
because
if you want it,
but you just validated that. You have a
Right.
specific way of doing it, so
But who's
Right.
to say
If
my
you-
way is right? No, I didn't
But-
validate
and
it
that-
because
that's-
I saying
that's the thing.
I saying her food tastes just as good. It ain't got taste like mine, but it tastes just as good. So for me, I had to learn to remove myself because my way is not the only way. So me
That's-
saying it's
that's
bad
it.
advice, but
That's
I just
it.
saying I had to learn that for me, Pinky, your way is not the only way. Like,
That's it.
what
That's
in this
it. 'Cause
conversation,
critical.
right? I just noticed something. We're talking about kids and so as well, right? What's the difference between guidance and advice? Or are they the same? Right? Because we try to guide our kids, right? But we're guiding them with advice, knowledge. I mean,
I think the difference
Almost
between
equivalent to management and leadership.
There you
One is showing and one is telling.
Mhm.
And I think there's a difference when you guide somebody to do something, you're allowing them
to do the stuff.
do it
And
based
showing
on
them.
what you've showed them. But when you're telling them to do something, it's like I said, it has its own meaning to everybody, but it's
Right.
similar
Right.
to the difference of being a manager and being a leader. And even now being a coach, it's like they all have different levels. But when you give advice, you have to learn that it's up to the recipient to receive it. Like I just have people give you advice and come back and expect you to take it.
Yeah.
You're being an
Right.
authorian when you expect me to do it or you do it yourself. But giving someone advice and telling them, hey, based on my experience, this is what worked for me. You have to know how to deliver it as well. Like this is what worked for me. But you could do it how you want to. Like I'll tell my kids, this is what worked for me. And if they choose to do it their way, and I'm working on that part, the I told you so part.
Hey, Sasha, you could be a motivational speaker.
At my age, I have at my age, I haven't worked on the I told you part, because when I tell them not to do something and they go and do it, and they come back and say, "Well, mommy," I said, but I limit it to once a month. I limit my I told you so to once a month. So I only tell them I told you so once a month, and it has gotten better because I really have to tell them, because like I said, I come with the PowerPoint presentation, the example, I send them Pinterest, YouTube videos of this is what I'm talking about that you should do. This is how it should look. But if they still choose, I had to learn as a parent, like Pinky said, to accept their choice. Like I have to accept it, you know,
And
because at the end of the day, it's not my life.
Right. And so that's the reason why for me, right? For me, it's never about the guidance for me, to what you were saying, Neil. Guidance for me is asking them questions because I'm a question person, right? I need to know what the word means to you. I need to know
It's
what the
called
purpose of the
constructivism
thing
teaching.
is to you.
Yeah.
I need to know exactly what's the benefit of it to you, because if there is no benefit to you, I'm wasting my time because you're not going to take it anyway because you don't see the purpose. And so for me, guidance is, okay, you want to do this, or if I would like you to do something, I'm going to explain to you why I would like you to do it. Then I need to know if you understand that, if you see the value in it. Because if I don't think you see the value in it, then I'm not going to tell you anything, because we're now on a different level. What you want from me is not what I want to give. And I think we get caught up in wanting things to be how we want them to be and skipping the other person, right? And so in order for us to have better understanding or for application to work, we have to figure out where they are, because I may want the kitchen a certain way, right? But I want it that way because that makes it more comfortable for me, right? The other person that's going to use the kitchen, it may not be comfortable for them. So I am now making the kitchen a place of stress, which means that when they go in there, nothing is going to happen well. Nothing is going to work well because I've created a trauma anxiety in that place because it doesn't look like I want it to look. But it's not about me. And that's the other thing. We always tend to we misunderstand the concept of self in a lot of ways because we don't realize that everybody has a self.
Right.
And I can't impose myself on you and expect you to be that person, right? Because if I expect you to do all the things that I'm telling you to do, not understanding the reason why you're doing what you're doing, my poor child, I still feel sorry for her till now. When she was little, for me, I wouldn't beat her. We would sit down and have these conversations. One, because my whole point was to teach her critical thinking, right? I needed her to have critical and analytical thinking, period, end of story. However she utilized it, that's what I wanted her to learn. So if she did something that I didn't approve of, I would tell her, I don't approve of this because this is what happens. So tell me why you did it. And we would sit down there and I would ask questions. And she, poor thing, she 3. I also learned to have a conversation with someone with a PhD and somebody with 2. And it needs to be the same concept. Because if I can't do that, I'm going to lose somebody, or I'm going to lose people getting the meaning in between. So I learned to be able to upgrade and downgrade, for lack of a better word, the conversation, because the concept is the same, right? And so because of that, it made me understand that just because I see things or I would like things a certain way does not mean that that's the way things are supposed to be. That is the reason why I travel as much as I do, because I realize living in the Western world, when you go to the Eastern world, it's a completely different concept. And so I get to learn a whole lot, even about myself and some of the things that I thought, no, this is the easiest thing to do, or this is the thing that makes the most sense. But then you go someplace else and they do it differently. And I'm not going with the mindset that I am right. I'm going with the concept that I am a person and this person is a person, right? And so when I do people, it is to learn from them, right? And so I'll give you an example. Something that most people don't think about, that for me, it's the simple differences that make big difference that we could utilize, but we don't usually utilize. So I left from here and I went to Shenzhen, right, in China. And simple thing, went to the store to buy ice cream. They gave me the ice cream in a cone in an insulated wrapper. All of a sudden, my entire world changed because I'm figuring to myself, well, why the heck didn't anybody else ever think of this? You put it in an insulated wrapper, the ice cream stays cold. There is no dripping. But no, of course not. You know, that's a concept that's foreign when you're over here. But something as simple as that, right, is commonplace to them, which means how they think about things is different, right? And so we have to really be able to, even when you're giving advice, are you giving advice or guidance based on them doing what you want or what is best for them?
Then, right.
And
Or,
are
may,
you willing?
or sometimes
Are
it
you
could just
willing?
come from a simple place, like, because I always tell my children, I don't know for sure, I don't know. Because sometimes we don't know, right? But we give an advice based on what we do know. And so, Shirley, what you're talking about is being open and being flexible. As my theory is this, I've heard a spiritual teaching that if I give each of us the same ingredients, everybody gonna come out with a different cake. And it's true. And everybody cake might taste good, but at the end of the day, we're gonna come out with a different cake. And my thing is there's 6 billion people, 7 billion, I don't know, 8.
7.
So if it got so much people on the planet, right, why does it have to be Pinky Way? And so even with our children, we have to come to that conclusion, not because they're our children, we own them. They have a right to be their own self and show up as an individual in the world. And they will bring something up for me. And that's could be because I have adult children. They'll teach me a lot because I used to be that person who wanted everything done a specific way. But Vincent was the first person who teach me, well, if you want me to help you, you're going to let me do it my way and you're going to step aside. And believe me, I had a little anxiety attack and I did not like how he did it, but I had to learn to accept another person's perspective and another person's way of doing things. And you will give advice, but some people don't want it, and that's fine too. If they have their way of doing it, they have their way to, and if they fail, and this is another valuable lesson I had to learn. And if they fail by doing it their way, that was their choice, and that's okay. They could learn from that. Just like I failed many times because my parents, and I'd always say my parents gave us many advice and we didn't listen and we did fail, right? And if we took that part, then why are we trying to, put our children in this and not have experiences? They need to have experiences.
And that's the reason why I think it's important when we are asking, when we want, okay, so if you're in a business setting, it's slightly different, right? Because if we have an end goal, the end goal is everybody has the same end goal. It's figuring out who does what best to get to the end goal. You know what the big picture is going to look like? We could want it done this way. If I can see that you, which is why, I do business consulting based on personality, because I realize that a lot of people have all these things and they want this done, but they put people in the wrong places. So because it doesn't make any sense to them, they're not going to get it done. And so we really have to be at the point where it's like, okay, why do I want this done this way? What is it that I'm actually trying to achieve? And is this person who I've decided to involve in it willing or have the same level of importance or priority that I do for this thing? Because am I just reconstructing them to do what I want? Slavery been dead. Well, no, that's not true. Slavery's not dead. I mean, human trafficking makes more money than anything on the planet right now. So, but are we doing it because we want things a certain way? And what is it that we are trying to accomplish? Is it ease or convenience for us? Or is it because that's all the information that we have? Because we only do things based on the decisions that we've made. The information that we've processed is the decision that we've made. And so we move based on that. And so it's to figure out in your authentic self, for lack of a better word, right? In figuring out the reality of you, not the potential of you. In figuring out the reality of you, are you seeing the reality of the other person,
Person.
or are you
Sure.
seeing the potential of the other person? Because if
Sure.
you're working with an imaginary person, you're going to have a problem. If they're trying to be the imaginary person for you, yes, they're set up to fail. It's going to happen because who they are hasn't been taken into consideration. And that's where the struggle comes in. But, we live, we learn, we move on.
Exactly. Sure. Well, you know what I'm about to say.
No, I can't read mine, so tell me. I mean, really?
We don't
Young
went
Neil
past.
boy.
We
I
went
mean,
past our 25. We went 25 minutes in, but
okay.
again,
You want cash you more money? Okay, I get you.
these are great nuggets. And again, like I said, my push is always living intentional and really thinking about what we say and do. And of course, I thank each and every one of you.
Hey, Shelly.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hey,
hmm?
yeah, yeah. I like what you were saying. You and Sasha, are you?
And that's
Are
why
you
that's
thumbs
why
up?
they're returning guests. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Pinky. And of course, thank you, our listening audience who have commented. And again, put in there in the comments some of the best advice you've gotten, because you just never know who it might resonate with, right? And who might need it to put it into put the
Yeah.
application
Let me
in
sing happy
place.
birthday for
No,
Happy
I
birthday
already,
to
I
you.
already, I already got my
Happy
happy
birthday to
birthday
you.
on.
But
So, but
I'll say
thank
this
you
Yeah,
before
I
guys.
you
want Pinky
I'll
singing
say this
with
before
me.
you close out. One thing
Uh-huh.
I've learned is when people come to you for advice, they're only looking for confirmation for a decision they've already made.
Some people, yeah.
Yes,
Some
that is
people.
actually true.
Yeah.
That is
But good
actually true.
night. And we want to
But
thank Debbie also. We want to thank Debbie also. And Sasha, thank you, because I could call Sasha 10 minutes before and she is here. So I
that's
have to put
actually
that
what
out there.
happened.
10 minutes before and she was here. So
And
thank you.
I
But
had to look like somebody.
at some point, Karen, you funny, you're funny. So
thank you guys once
Thank
again.
you.
Please stay safe. Our next upcoming shows are going to be some fun stuff as we get into the season and the end of the
Mhm.
year and the beginning of the year. So again, thank you all. Be safe, and we will see you back here next week Thursday.
all right,
Happy
Bye
Mhm.
everyone.
season,
adios.
everybody.